voting for people that get up there and do not represent the people that they're supposed to represent. So, getting off my podium and sermon, Charles Pattison is here today from Tallahassee, and you have to be nice to him because he is up there just taking a terrible beating with what is going on in Tallahassee. But he is our spokesman for trying to get any House of Representatives and speakers who care about our residents, who care about our environment, to listen. I'm afraid he might have some bad news for us. I think he called his speech Madness in Tallahassee. And he will have to take questions and answers right afterwards because he needs to get back to Tallahassee, get his energy together to get back into the arm wrestling up there. Charles? I would also not only was 1,000 Friends our co-challenger on Ag Tech, but he was also the land planning expert, and he did a fantastic job. You would have been very proud of him testifying on our behalf for the comprehensive plan of Martin County and for our future.
And Maggie, I'm always the one bringing the bad news from Tallahassee. The problem this time is it's worse. I've got a bunch of handouts. If I think we can just let people come up and get them if they want. I've got some outlines of all the legislation that either we're following or our friends at Audubon are following. The conservation groups are so thinly stretched right now that we pretty much had to divide up the issue areas, and we're covering growth management, and we're following Audubon or Nature Conservancy's lead on some of the environmental legislation that I'll go over. But if you want it, it's up there. Let me...
Can you tell them we're going to take a break right after you?
Okay, there'll be a break so you can come up and take advantage of any of these things. Well, let me sort of tell you how we got here and some of the background. We started to get pretty nervous back in November after the election, and thought that we better get together with all the other groups and figure out what we can best do to at least put a unified voice out there. We've got two publications that the leading conservation and planning groups worked on together to come up with what we considered some reasonable suggestions for improving growth management, but probably more important than that was a document that we all worked on that shows the economic value for not just growth management, but the foundation for the state's whole economy, and that's protecting our natural resources. That's the fundamental issue we think that's in play here for economic recovery. I think most of you would agree if we lose that, Florida has lost its economic base. But the key words in Tallahassee right now are jobs and economic development. No matter what, it seems to be the thing. And that's making it very difficult. Most of the people in the conservation community I'm working with think this is the worst session they've seen in the last 20 years. I'd like to think that that was it. It might get worse. But I'm going to go through the growth management bill in some detail. And like Donna said, we'll take some questions. But there are about 5 or 6 growth management bills moving. I got to tell you, it's not fun when you see a 283-page bill that you've made notes on, and I've got my notes and things here if anybody wants to look at it. And the day before the hearing, they have a thing called a strike call where they just wipe it out and substitute a 311-page brand new document that you have to go through in order to understand what's in play. So that's happened a couple of times. The growth management bill, though, that would seem to be the one that might move forward at this point is a Senate bill, 1122. And it's somewhat similar to a House version, which all the conservation groups are opposing at this point. I'm going to tell you what it does, and then we will highlight a few of the, I don't know if I could say good points, maybe the bad points it's easier to work from. The fundamental thing that is in play here for both the House and the Senate growth management bills is to minimize the state's role in comprehensive plan amendments reviews. That seems to be the main thing. The way that's to be done is to institute a new process called alternative state review. It's actually a process that was a pilot. Several communities in Florida had used it. What it does is it minimizes the state's role. It speeds up the plan amendment process. The state agencies can comment if they want to. They don't have to. They have the ability to comment, or they're required to comment in certain areas, which could be changed. But currently it would be if anyone is proposing a rural land stewardship project, a sector planning project, they're updating their comprehensive plan on that 7-year cycle. I know there's one more. And any new plan that would be proposed by a new community, but that's a pretty limited list. The Senate version is something a little different than the House. It does allow still for people to ask for a full review, which could come in handy if there's a DCA there to make any comments, but we'll get to that in a minute. The one thing, and I don't know if Jenny's going to talk about this, maybe she will, there's a key legal foundation for making a citizen challenge for the plan amendments. We've all labored under this fairly debatable standard, which is pretty difficult. And I don't know if, Jenny, if you're going to talk about that, but this version, fortunately for the time being at least, has a preponderance of evidence test. I won't bore you with the significance of that, but that's a big deal if we can hold on to it, and we're going to try to do that. One of the most draconian things that happens, though, is that both bills propose the elimination of 9J5 and 9J11. That's the 25-year foundation for growth management statewide. My sense is that's being done more for legal reasons than anything else, because if you erase the few victories that we all have had in the past, you start with a clean slate, which is what a lot of people want to happen. Another thing of note is that the need issue has been minimized. Let me just take a minute and talk about that, because Maggie touched on it too. In Tallahassee, you've heard that growth management has killed economic development and recovery. I can't imagine something further from the truth. The last 4 years alone, and these are figures that DCA released, and this is when, I don't know, for Martin County in particular, but statewide, Tom Pelham was seen as someone that had really cranked down on development all over the state. In the last 4 years that he was there, the state of Florida approved over 1 million new homes, none of which have been built. They approved just under 3 billion square feet of commercial and institutional space statewide, none of which has been built. Translate that into, the thing I use is a regional mall. It's about 1 million square feet. So you're talking about 3,000 of those things that have been authorized during the last 4 years, none of which has been built. That's on top of anything that was already in every comprehensive plan in the state. And DCA somehow killed jobs. And the answer is to get rid of growth management. It really doesn't add up. The bill does contain the urban sprawl definition from the statute, and there are 13 indicators that local governments use to see if that's a problem. That is still there, at least for the short term. Financial feasibility is removed as a consideration for approving a plan amendment, especially when you've got developers paying for their share of the infrastructure. How you could believe that that's appropriate at this point in time, I don't know. There's an elimination for any local government that might even think about doing a supermajority vote on plan amendments, or allowing for any kind of public referendum on plan amendments anywhere in the state. There are streamlining changes to the evaluation and appraisal report process. There are weaker versions of the sector planning and rural land stewardship programs. These are large-scale, 5,000 acre or larger projects, other parts of the state. Energy efficiency's been removed from the requirements of the plans. Concurrency, which has been kind of a mixed bag, but at this point the idea is to make transportation concurrency and school concurrency optional, leaving that to each local government to decide whether or not they want to do it. We have the reconstituted Senate Bill 360 from 2 years ago that was found unconstitutional has been re-adopted. Essentially what that calls for are dense urban land areas. I think Stewart might be one that gives them a transportation concurrency option as well as exemption from the DRI process for large-scale projects. Impact fees, new or increased ones, are banned for 2 years. All permit approvals are extended for 2 years. Something really innovative, transportation backlog areas are now called transportation deficiency areas. Just kidding. There is a requirement that DCA reassess all of its cases that are currently pending, and the likely outcome would be that they'll be dismissed. Let me tell you a couple of things that we see as critical here. Elimination of 9J5 and 9J11, that's going to undermine quite a bit statewide as those go. One that, to me, I think maybe the biggest sleeper and sounding most simple